Namaskar. It's my pleasure to welcome Abhijit Iyer-Mitra for Ask Abhijit PGurus Primetime Live. This is episode number 10. Abhijit, welcome to PGurus channel.
Vetrivel, thanks for having me on.
And Jai Kali Mata Di. And what has been happening, I don't know how many of you know, but Mamta Didi has been banned from election campaigning for 24 hours. I don't know what she said. Abhijit might be able to add a little bit more to it. But before we jump into that news, which is the latest, I wanted to talk to Abhijit really quickly about this ongoing talk round after round after round. I know you told me that these talks are good because you get to know the body language. But if the person on the other side is stoic, what are you going to get from that?
No, it isn't just about body language. See, it's the fact that we need to finish construction of infrastructure at our end. So then when we say there's an infrastructure freeze, we're in a very good ground to say, okay, no more infrastructure now. We've built everything we need to. So the longer this continues, the better it is for us. I don't know why we're cribbing about it.
How about this? We are building roads and they're building airports.
They're building airports, but remember, they have really trashy helicopters. Right? Russian helicopters aren't tropicalized. They aren't made for high altitude like that and things like that. At least they take a lot of effort and extra maintenance. The fuel load is extremely high operating out of those high air bases and things. So a road is always going to be better than a helipad out there. But also remember, a lot of the helipads they're building also extend to the Nepal border and the Bhutan border and things like that. So it's not entirely India focused either. It's a full-on string of infrastructure that they're building. And also remember, in our case, the distance. For us, the planes, the Indo-Gangetic planes with just 1,000-foot elevation start very, very quickly. When you're flying from, say, Delhi to Calcutta, you're flying over the plains, but in your sight of vision, as the crow flies between about 30, 40 kilometers as far as you can see you've reached the pinnacle. Within about 30, 40 kilometers depth, you've reached the pinnacle of the Himalayas heights and things like that. You can literally see Mount Everest when you're flying from Delhi to Dhaka. Right? So it's our ability to project air power onto the Tibet plateau, including helicopters, is a lot quicker than their ability to do the same, because the Tibet plateau is so huge, taking off from high altitude requires a lot.
That's true. I mean, I've lived in mile high altitudes, and I used to run about 1 hour, 6 miles. Used to be a huge effort. You're gasping for breath at the end.
So this is why Ethiopians do so well on marathons and things, because Ethiopia is a very high plateau. It's like 7, 8, 9, 10,000 feet, and because they keep running in high altitudes, when the oxygen is increased in any summer Olympic venue, they end up doing spectacularly.
Amazing. So quickly, on your thoughts on Mamata getting banned for 24 hours.
These are my thoughts.
Meaning, I'm sorry, I'm not able to see you.
Look,
You're smiling.
I think 24 hours too little. If you remember, Anurag Thakur was banned for a lot longer for saying "Desh ke gaddaron ko goli maro salon ko."
Right.
Now, he just said shoot traitors. He didn't say who the traitors were. In Mamata's case, she has specifically said go attack CRPF. So if the election commission is compromised, as Derek O'Brien claims, it certainly isn't compromised in favor of the BJP. If anything, it's compromised in favor of the TMC and the Congress, because they've been too damn lenient on the TMC.
Well, we have to wait and see what happens. I think, many states, West Bengal is one of them, are very prone to poll violence, where people are forcibly kept out of booths, and that it just starts there, and then booth snatching and so on and so forth has been happening for a long time. So you are actually training them to play nice, isn't it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because that's how you have 8 rounds, so that there's enough number of CRPF to ward off any kind of these
So,
kinds of
their
force.
tactics also shifted. Initially, the CPM tactics, which were all the TMC tactics, was booth control, which is, very easy to do. You've got 10, 15 goons waiting outside the booth. And when they see anybody come up to vote, they go check you. If they think you're not going to vote for them, they threaten you, or they mostly know who's going to vote for you. And if you're not on that list, they'll threaten you and send you away. Now, because you have CRPF, they're not able to do booth control. So what they're doing is they're doing district control, which is preventing people from going out of their houses.
Yeah, right.
Which is, requires a much heavier manpower deployment. It's much more manpower intensive. It's much more expensive. It's much more failure prone.
True, true. And Chinese vaccine, I'm hearing that it's only 55% effective. Any ideas about why it's so bad?
No idea. I haven't seen the Chinese. In fact, I think it was 85% failure rate in Brazil when they tried it, right?
Oh, so here's this. Here's the scoop. Indian vaccines are being smuggled out of India into Pakistan.
They are
and,
wonderful.
and the ones that who are getting the prime, the ones who are getting the vaccines are all the, the babus and the generals. They are the first ones getting themselves vaccinated, and probably they'll say, our religion says that you don't need to get vaccinated, you'll be okay, but truth is something else.
Look, I mean, this government they managed everything very, very decently till it came to all these Stalinist price controls on vaccines, price and distribution controls. And, they've not learned. So you can say that they took a cost benefit analysis in favor of life over the economy for full lockdown. Okay. Even that, acceptable. At this point, for you to, and to be doubling down and to have that moron of a health secretary going and making the kind of ludicrous remarks he's making, saying that the government has no control over vaccine production, nor are we restricting it or X, Y, Z. The fact that he continues to remain health secretary tells you a lot about the caliber of leadership we have.
Yep. Okay, so let's jump right into questions. Abhijit, we are hoping that you can stay a little bit longer today. I don't know if you're going to be able to. I'm going to just keep asking until you tell me stop. First question, Mr. Lee.
Stop.
That's being a bad boy. Here.
Okay.
Should India make maths compulsory till class 12, even for arts, humanities, commerce streams like they do in China?
No, and I'll tell you why. The problem is with how we teach. Be it maths, be it anything else, we're teaching by rote, we're not teaching by first principles. Okay, everything that's taught in school, you forget almost 95 to 97% of it. You only retain 3% of what you're taught in school. And it's really more about training your mind for what goes in later. So, this old Aristotelian thought that, everybody should be taught maths till they are fit enough to join the Spartan army kind of nonsense. This is all old thinking, boss. It does nothing for your brains. See, it is not the mathematics that rewires your brains. It is the principles of understanding mathematics that rewires your brains. Okay, so as long as your mathematics teaching continues to be the third-rate learn by rote system that we have today, you're not going to achieve anything. If anything, you need a vast simplification of the syllabus, and you can't force everything down everybody's throats. If people don't want to learn civics, why the hell are you teaching them civics? If people don't want to learn history, so basically the only things you really, really need to teach them are basic arithmetic, okay? Clear language. It doesn't matter what the language is, but at least teach it to them properly. Don't teach them a language. See, English is taught very clearly. Spoken English is the same as the English we study, as long as you remove that Shakespearean crap from our school books. Okay. But you look at languages like Telugu or Tamil, there's no connection between the written language and the spoken language. Or even Bengali or Hindi. Chaste Hindi is a completely different beast from spoken Hindi. So, you're forcing things upon them. The argument made against English is it's unnatural for kids to be forced to learn subjects in a language that they don't understand. you realize teaching people in chaste vernacular is also doing the exact same thing. It's like teaching me mathematics in Russian. Because the difference, I can honestly tell you, before we came online, Sree told me something in Tamil and I didn't understand a word of it. Because he was speaking chaste Tamil and I don't understand a word of chaste Tamil. I only speak Brahminical Tamil at home, which is a completely different beast. I can also speak Slum Tamil, which is another. So I speak two versions of Tamil, Slum Tamil and Brahmana Tamil. But chaste Tamil is, I can't understand it. I can understand Russian better than I understand chaste Tamil. Right? So, no, you need to focus down. You can't keep adding to their load. You want to subtract the load, not add to the load.
And I think we have to make learning fun. That fun element can be put in, especially when you're teaching subjects like math, science. You can actually make it a lot of fun to learn stuff. I think that you hit the nail on the head. The road system needs to go, and we should encourage children to ask why and how. Right now, it's not like that. It's just that this is what it is. My rabbit has
Here
three.
you're actually punished for asking why and how.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That was a really great answer and a good question, Mr. Lee. And Mr. Lee has a follow-up referring to the Lavrov visit to India, Pakistan. What does Russia really expect to sell to Pakistan? Do you think issues like Russian, Pakistani roles in Afghanistan were discussed?
No. Look, that fellow Zamir Kabulov, like we discussed, who's President Putin's special envoy to Afghanistan, he's completely compromised. He's an ISI stooge, right? Now, what Lavrov is trying to do is, this whole concept of visiting Pakistan and India, it was dumped long back. That parity that was maintained was dumped long back. So basically, Lavrov is kind of threatening us, saying, if you get closer to America, we can get closer to Pakistan. It's a warning shot, that's all.
Great. Sorry, I was trying to address my phone. Next question. Are you studying or have already studied Mandarin? If yes, if you have to crystal ball gaze into the next 20 years, how do you see the importance of Mandarin playing out?
It's not important at all, unless you're an intelligence professional who wants to do primary research. In fact, I found that in China, not speaking Mandarin was a much more effective business and negotiation tool, because the moment I tried my very bad, very limited Mandarin, they put you on the back foot. All right, because they will always speak it much better. You get that inferiority complex that a person who doesn't speak English, when he comes into a company and gets spoken to in English, that inferiority complex, that's what sets in. Number one. Number two, yes, I did learn Mandarin. I was very, very bad at it, because it turns out I'm not tone deaf, I'm tone dumb. I understand how it's being said. It's just that I can't reproduce it properly. So yeah. So clearly Mandarin, Vietnamese, Cantonese, they're all out of the equation for me. Thai, Cambodian, they're all out of the equation for me.
I believe that Mandarin also uses the pronunciation ra. 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 Vara param. That's banana in Tamil. Okay. Bharat Ved Prakash wants to know, what is preventing BJP government from giving security to Yati Narsingananda? How is the Yogi government allowing a poster in Kanpur instigating the killing of Yati/Rizvi?
Ask them. I've been telling you for a very long time that they don't seem to care about Hindu lives. They're only concerned about Hindu votes. And that's what it turns out it is.
Well, we already have Kamlesh Tiwari, right? Tiwari was...
Trust me, this Yati Narsinganand is going to go the Kamlesh Tiwari way.
Sad.
He's going to go that way. And when that happens, none of these people in power will be held responsible for it, though they will be responsible for it.
So I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask you the question. Mandar Karnik wants to know, was Pangong So disengagement unnecessary?
No, not really. You've just reduced the point of friction. If there was disengagement, great. If there was no disengagement, perfectly okay. Okay, you've just reduced the danger of something like Galwan happening again. That's all.
And viewers, I would encourage you to listen to some of my conversations with Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, where he looked at it from the army perspective and explained these things in great detail. So just go ahead and take a look at those videos for more. Pramit Khatwa wants to know, expanding on the last episode question answered about CCP invading Pakistan by controlling ports, how will it play out? Will it be a repeat of Xinjiang, or is Pak too religious to do that?
I didn't understand.
Oh, what he's telling you is, just like the Chinese have taken over Xinjiang, and there is a systematic uh, process by which they are trying to,
Okay, so I
educate.
don't understand what the connection is. Xinjiang is a part of China.
Right,
None of
right.
these places are a part of China.
Well,
The
he's
police
asking
Pakistani.
that what he wants to know is China is going to occupy
There's no
Pakistan.
extra. There's no extraterritoriality agreement here.
Post Merkel retirement, will you be more French dominated?
I doubt that very much, because whoever's going to take over from Merkel will also be a past master at playing European politics. Right? There isn't a single German politician I've met who isn't very, very good at European politics. So we may think the French may get an upper hand, but remember, the French are still begging. The Germans are the ones dispersing the funds. See, so Germany basically in World War One and World War II, they tried to control Europe through tanks, and they failed. So they succeeded where the tanks failed, they succeeded with money. And that's it. So Germany, that locus of power, industrial power, financial power, is not leaving Germany anytime soon.
I think the world should look at Germany. In 1990, one third, I think, no, one quarter of East Germany got annexed with the remaining three quarters, which is what is called as West Germany. I'm loosely saying this because at the end of Second World War, the country was split into four parts. Three stayed with the NATO powers such as France, England, and then one part stayed with Russia. But they integrated them, and together they managed to somehow pull up the East Germany, isn't it?
And it was a very, very expensive process, right? It
Yes,
cost them
yes.
almost €1 trillion to invest in infrastructure and education and things like that in East Germany and bring it up to the level of West Germany. And this is why, when we do reunification calculations for North and South Korea, we say that, Germany got away with under investing, got away at a good time reuniting, because the cost of a South North Korean reunification is going to be a lot more than German unification cost West Germany. So, it's just one of those things.
And by the way, I don't know how many of you know this, but Angela Merkel is from what used to be the East German part. And I think
Not
she has a.
really, no. She used to
No?
travel a lot. Her father was a West German Lutheran pastor. This
Okay.
keeps getting said, but no, she was born, bred, had a West German passport, but she was allowed to be, her father was allowed to work in and preach in East Germany. So they lived in East Germany for a while, but she's not East German, no.
I see, I see. Okay, so let's move on. Munish Rati wants to know, will it be beneficial or logical to buy online coding classes for my 11-year-old daughter?
I think you have to understand that. I don't know about coding classes online.
Yes, Munish, you can, if your daughter has the aptitude for programming, by all means do take those things. Plus, look at things like Khan's Academy. Those lectures are they're free, they're very good, and there are many sample codes available. What you really need to do is to take a problem and solve it, and when you try to do that, that solving process will give you the tools that you need to understand, and then you take one step at a time, and I'm sure you can help your daughter learn programming. Yes, there are kids in the United States who start programming at the age of 6. They try to break the games, online games, so that they'll never lose. I mean, that's a huge incentive. If you can't lose, then what happens is nowadays you get paid for winning online game tournaments. So that sets off a whole new industry. I just want to give you an example. Let's move on to the next question, Abhijit. Divyanshu Srivastava wants to know, how do you see Meteor and Astra missiles in compared to PL-15 and AMRAAMs in BVR environment of Southeast Asia?
As a rule, a Western missile will have far, far better electronic capabilities, not necessarily kinetic capabilities. Uh, the main thing, there are two issues here. One is missile accuracy, which is based on the resolution and fidelity of the radar in the nose, in which case both the Meteor and the AMRAAM would be way, way ahead of everybody else. And the second is its uh, ability to avoid jamming or minimize jamming. And in order to minimize jamming, of course, the Americans would be way ahead of the Europeans. So while the Meteor will be kinematically a better missile, the AMRAAM will probably have much better anti-jamming capabilities, because to be good at anti-jamming, you need to have a global electronic intelligence program which spies on every adversarial country, collects their electronic signals, and feeds it in software patches into the radar, so that it can distinguish jamming signals that don't send it off course. Right? So because the Americans have such an amazing, huge electronic intelligence network, they would be picking up all these signals, transferring them into counter signals or evasion signals, or teaching the radar to evade certain signals, or one of the other ways in which saturation jamming works is they saturate you with so many true signals, you don't know which one is the real one. So, there the ability to discriminate, to pick out one real signal within about 10 to 50,000 parts of bad signal. Think of it this way: there is one person calling out your name in a crowd of 50,000 people chanting Om Namah Shivaya. Okay. And if you have the a sort of hearing capability, you can pick out that one person saying Abhijit, Abhijit, when Abhijit, Abhijit, your hair is on fire, or your kurta is on fire, or something like that, out of a crowd of 50,000 people chanting Om Namah Shivaya. Think of this as the radar equivalent of it, right? That's the kind of there's several kinds of jamming. This is one more. So, that discrimination ability, the anti-jamming ability, all of this is based on processors. And in processors, we know China is way, way, way behind America. India, well, Sree can tell you about our processor industry.
Yes, and Abhijit, I think you touched upon a point which might be of use to viewers to know. I'm going to just request you for 2-3 minutes, talk about what is electronic measures, electronic countermeasures, electronic countermeasures. This other subject, what exactly happens when there is two countries engaging in these kind of things? What exactly do they do? Just 2 minutes, if you don't mind. I think it's a very useful thing to know.
So basically, think of it this way: it's like a virus and the antivirus. Okay, it's a constant evolving game where you're trying to be better than what's thrown at you. So electronic measures are when you're jamming somebody. Electronic countermeasures can be one of anything. It can either be jamming somebody or jamming the jammer. But electronic countermeasures are when you are being jammed and you're trying to counter it. It's basically it's more of a linguistic thing based on what you classify. Different people have different notions of EM, ECM, and ECCM.
And does China now have stealth aircraft?
Okay. See, stealth is so much more than just the shape. We seem to think that just having, that sexy UFO new age kind of shape makes you stealth. It does not. There are so many things that go into stealth. Things like, for example, if you leave contrails,
Condensation trails. Go ahead. Yeah.
You're basically telling ground artillery, it doesn't matter if you're not visible on the radar,
I
you're
can see
telling
your
ground
contrails. Yes.
artillery
Right.
or an
Right.
image guided missile, I am here, come hit me. Like you remember in school, you used to put target, use sellotape and stick target on your enemy's back and say, please punch me, or please kick me, or please spit at me, something like that on his back. It's like that. It won't work. Second, every plane coming up now also has infrared signature detection. Right, the Russians were the first to introduce it. Now almost everybody has it. The F-35 has it built in 360 degrees, which nobody else has. They now have 360-degree infrared and image detection. So what happens is, even if infrared fails, so even if they've masked the heat signature coming out of the engine, but if you haven't masked your contrails, it can pick you up purely based on your contrails. Okay. And if you're not having contrails, it can pick you up based on your heat signature, which you really can't hide. There's very little you can do. Like a lot of planes. So for example, if you look at the F-22, right, you'll see that its exhaust, the engine exhaust, is a rectangle. Why? Because you know the formula for a circle is pi r square. Na?
Right, pi r square. Yeah.
Right. So a square of the same dimensions, or a rectangle of the same dimensions, will have greater surface area than a circle. So what, as in the diameter of circle.
Yeah, you're saying a square of a side 2r. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens is, because the surface area is increased, the heat signature, the intensity of the heat signature decreases, because it's dissipated over a greater surface area. The F-23, which was in competition with the F-22, went a step further. What it did was, in addition to a square exhaust, it also had a huge deep channel. It was almost like 7-8 feet long. So it shielded. So for example, if this is the exhaust, this channel, it was almost like putting a masker. The visual signature of the heat, the corona, you know, sun ka corona and things like that, that would be shielded. Plus it had heat ablating tiles which would dissipate the heat across the surface. And because it was almost 7-8, I don't know, possibly even 10 feet of length, on which the exhaust gases had to travel, it would then dissipate it, right? So it went to extreme measures to hide those heat signatures. So there's several ways of reducing, but you can't eliminate heat signature. And the more sensitive your heat signature picker uppers are, the better it is. So for example, a Russian IRST, infrared search and track, can look out about 120, 130 kilometers. The system installed on the F-35, there's actually a video of it somewhere. I think I put it up during one of my YouTube video lectures. I think it was on the Jaipur Dialogues. This was an F-35 flying near Maryland, which is basically Washington, D.C.
Right.
That picked up a Falcon rocket launch in Florida, 1,800, 1,900 kilometers away. That is like a plane flying in Delhi, or even further north, probably taking off from Srinagar, being able to detect a launch from Sriharikota outside Madras, purely through infrared detection. That's how good those things are. Actually, go to YouTube and check it out. There's a video of this, right? So it's fantastic.
Go ahead.
So this is one aspect of stealth. The next aspect of stealth is when you use radars. Radar is what? Radio assisted detection and ranging. So you're sending radio waves out. It's like a transmitter in the sky. So how precise are your waves? Because there's wave loss, you know, when you send something out, for example, like, you know, when you get into the water and you push the water like this, you'll see the wave becomes bigger and bigger and bigger because it's expanding. That's how radio waves behave. So how long are you able to maintain just that very sharp radio wave? How fast does it come back to you and you pick up data and switch it off immediately so that it doesn't continue and alert them? That is another aspect of stealth. And yet another aspect of stealth is, the nose cone. The nose cone of a plane, you think of it as an aerodynamically efficient shape. It is sharp like this to allow the air to pass through. But for the radar, it's a radar transparent device. So anybody else detecting you sees a flat surface. Because if you have to allow radio waves out, you also have to allow radio waves in. So you're making it out of radio selective material. That is a huge black art. Okay, that it only allows the your waves to go out. It doesn't allow other waves to come out. The second is frequency selective glass for the cockpit. Because remember, the cockpit, again, you can't stealth it up. You may have a glass canopy, but the pilot, his headgear, and the ejection seat, they all stand out like sore thumbs. So you also have to prevent certain radar waves from being able to detect all of that. Stealth is an extremely complicated combination of a lot of different things, 90% of which the Chinese simply have not mastered. So, just putting the shape on a plane and saying it's stealth doesn't make a plane stealth.
And viewers, all these things about stealth, contrails is going to figure in my next book of fiction. I've already written, by the way. That's why I had some research, and also I did some research as a student. Way back in 1986, Reagan had opened up a lot of funding for Star Wars research program, where you could, basically they were trying to bring down satellites of Russia and so on. That's what led to the breakup of the Union and all that stuff. Good stuff anyway. So I'm going to the next question, Abhijit. Thanks for explaining that. It's very, very important. Will India be kicked out of Quad and replaced by Pakistan under Biden? Ajay Nair.
No, boss. See, they'll never do anything so blatant. It'll all be tiny little pinpricks. Understand, they play the long game. Biden will set it up so that 2 presidents down, we can be kicked out of the Quad. But it's our own fault, because for 30 years, we have said we're resetting relations with America and we haven't made them dependent on us. So now if we can be kicked out of the Quad, we've got nobody to blame but ourselves. That said, you also have to understand that what he's doing by announcing all these freedom of navigation operations on Twitter and crap like that, he's creating the building blocks for the relationship to be destroyed down the line.
And also, viewers, keep this in mind, that all the kids of the top leadership in China are all going to school in US, either in Ivy League schools or some of the best schools. And they bring in so much grants that they are able to influence the thinking there. All sorts of stupid stuff is happening. We brought these things out in some of our daily global insight. All I'm trying to say here is that, the Chinese have, really understood what the West is up to. The reverse, I can't say that to be true.
Correct. But also to remember, the Chinese are excluded from a lot of technical scientific engineering courses. No Chinese national is allowed to do those courses.
Well, there are so many universities, Abhijit. I don't know if they may be able to get into some. See, there's also another
controls about it. I mean, I worked on it, so I know.
Okay. Good to know that.
Unless you misrepresent your citizenship status, which right now is almost impossible, you won't be able to do it.
If you're born and brought up in Hong Kong, what passport do you carry today?
You carry a Hong Kong passport, which is a Chinese passport with, technically it's a Chinese passport, but it's a specific Hong Kong passport. Though many of them have a British Imperial passport, which is, I think these days it's classified as British Overseas Passport.
Right. Overseas British passport. Yeah, OBP. I mean, even people like, Gujaratis who are stuck in Kenya or in Uganda all had these things. But Britain said, you can't come here, you don't get citizenship. And that was British laws.
One such family.
Who?
The Hari Lelas.
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you. Go ahead.
3 famous Marwadi business families, the Hindujas of Bofor's fame. the Chelarams of Africa. So they're based out of Lagos, and the Hari Lelas of Hong Kong, who have this very famous house up on the hill. It's also one of the most hideous houses you'll ever see if you go into it. I've honestly never had a more vicious assault on my aesthetic and visual senses than that house. It's the classic example of money can buy you lots, but it can't buy you taste.
Okay, next question. What this video wants to know: if China has become so powerful that it can manipulate the USA and infiltrate their policies, even running them in some sorts, wouldn't China be the new superpower officially already?
No, no. And you know why? Because manipulation, you can, and see, this is why I keep warning people about conspiracy theories and this deep state theories and things like that. In real life, you can manipulate one or two things. You can't manipulate all the things all the time. There will always be checks and balances against it. And this is where America, being a country of laws, of the rule of law, actually prevents that from happening. Very, very significantly prevents that from happening. And that is why you will always see wokes will ultimately become the greatest allies of China, because they want to bring down these systemic protections by questioning everything and labeling it as institutional racism, systemic racism, and structural violence.
Akshay Chitnis wants to know: some senior defense experts such as Bharat Karnad say that India needs to do more nuclear tests. What's your opinion?
I agree. There's a big question on our nuclear tests. We do need to do more nuclear tests.
Parth wants to know: Abhijit sir, what is the future of Canada? I want to migrate there.
Sure, go ahead. No problem. They're not coming down anytime soon. You'll be relatively safe. They're relatively safe from terrorists and things like that. You might get beaten up by Khalistanis, but then if you wear a pagdi and go out, I guess you'd be safe.
By the way, those of you who have Netflix, there is a Canadian series called Intelligence, which is very good. It gives you it takes place in Vancouver, gives you a taste for how life in Canada is. And also, I don't know if some of you are follow Russell Peters. His tagline, "Somebody is gonna get hurt real bad." You should look up on why he came up with that tagline. It's very interesting. It has something to do with what Abhijit said just now. Anyway, next question. Shalab Pradhan wants to know: is there a plan for external powers to put India under FATF sanctions, since India is now under review by FATF?
No.
All right. Next question. Sridatta Satuluri wants to know: what has gone wrong in India's vaccination program? Have we overemphasized vaccine Maitri over domestic vaccination? What steps should government take and cause for lack of dosages in states? And also, viewers, there is a detailed hangout on this. Hold on. There's a detailed hangout on this with RBS Money that will be hearing tomorrow. Please go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
There's only two problems. One is you've imposed price controls, and second, you've imposed distribution controls. Okay, so that means the labs can't make a profit, which they then can plow in and ramp up production. See what happens when you ramp up production. What happens when everybody is vaccinated? What are you going to do with that excess capacity? After that, it will come down, right? So you're expecting these industrialists to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to ramp up production when you're not assuring them a buying back of that capability or a subsidy for that capability later on. This is what happens when idiots who run the government impose price controls. They should have known that by now, but then, with people like Shaktikanta Das and things like that, we've seen exactly what their economic credentials are. And the clown before that who had a PhD in yoga or something like that, but nothing to do with any kind of finance. This is the kind of policies you end up getting. This is exactly the kind of Stalinist policies that led to the Great Famine, with food controls and price controls on foods and things like that. This is the exact same. These are Stalinist, Maoist price control policies. They don't work. Okay. And fine, if you want it to work, then you give each of these biotech and other Poonawala 3,000 crores each, saying this is a gift from the people. In return for you maintaining prices low, we're giving you this. You invest in scaling up production right now so we get it. And after that, feel free to repurpose it for something else, or we'll take back the whatever we've invested in. Come up with some agreement like that. No. And then you also want distribution control, which is you will decide who gets the vaccine when, only over 45s. Who the way that idiot of a health secretary explained it, those in need, not those who want. That is very scarily close to the communist thing, from each as per his abilities to each as per his needs. So, this doesn't make any sense. It's a grave governmental mismanagement. Okay. The states are genuinely suffering from vaccine shortages. There are clear vaccine shortages which are induced by the government. Now, are the states also playing politics based on it? Of course they are. But that doesn't mean the government hasn't mucked it all up. They have.
And to add to your point, the United States, what they did was they gave, I think, $2 billion grants to Pfizer and Moderna and one other company to come up with these vaccines with a pre-filled order saying that we will take so many vaccines from you because we know that you have been in this industry for a long time. So that's one thing that US did. And the other thing too, one of the things about why if India has a shortage, why are they sending it out to the other countries? I think there is a benefit from that. Also remember that vaccines are only good for 6 months. And you have to, after that, the effectiveness comes down drastically. So you need to have, like what Abhijit said, it's a constant pipeline, and you need to be able to know how much to put it up, crank it down, how it's going to be, used. But I think this will all get sorted out, Abhijit.
But see, the thing also is, because of that 6 month, this thing, the plan should have been for a surge herd immunization to happen within 6 months. So the pool gets reduced, and then any new infections or breakthrough of new strains of the viruses can be contained much more easily.
Yes.
This is going to come back to bite us very, very badly. You are already seeing the numbers surge. And in spite of all of this crap, they've allowed the Kumbh Mela to go. Tell me, how is what is happening at the Kumbh Mela any different from what Tablighi Jamaat was doing? And your election rallies?
In fact,
do you think people vote based on going and hearing a speech? Do you think people vote based on seeing the size of a rally? And it's inexcusable that all the rules were broken just for the sake of it. You can have an election without rallies, no? The fellow can go around. What is the need to have a rally? You can go around shouting from microphones and megaphones. You can do it on TV. You can special purpose TV things. No? Okay, great. Do it. You're paying the price for it.
And one minor thing about what you just said, Abhijit. You see, this whole vaccine thing and being able to control for crowds, if you take a look at why, at least in the case of Maharashtra, that there is such high numbers, it's a new mutated version. There's a dual mutation that has happened only in the state of Maharashtra. This is a new virus that has come out. So and I believe it mutates much. I mean, it spreads much faster. So there are a few things like that too.
Which is all fine, but understand, if these stupid price and distribution controls hadn't happened in the first place, even the breakout mutation rate of infections would have been significantly reduced. Tell me one person who's been vaccinated that has got this new strain.
So Sachin Sharma has a follow-up question for you. Isn't the Indian government paying 35,000 crores to Serum and Bharat Biotech for the vaccine? If not, then what for did government put this amount in the budget?
They've given them some money towards initiating it. They're not giving them the money to expand it. And they're not
Okay.
allowing them to make profits to recoup first
There is an
we
R&D
and then
level
our
involved. Yeah.
yeah.
R&D, testing, validation, that takes a lot of time. It's not easy.
And also remember paying royalties back to the parent vaccine company.
Of course. And Anshuman Singh wants to know, when do you think police reforms will get introduced in India? And why do you think the militarization of police will be a disaster in India?
Militarization of police has always been a disaster.
Why is
In
that?
a country like America, where there is the right to own guns, you need a militarized police. In India, where there is no right to own guns, and in fact, gun ownership is extremely low, you don't need a militarized police. So, first is the need. The second is, remember, a militarized police is the sign of higher societal violence. If you don't have the gun problem in the first place, you don't need a militarized police. They're more than capable of dealing it. So, for example, French police aren't militarized and they deal with things very effectively. It was
You have a
mostly
point there. Yeah.
external wars and the tendency of the army to then join the police out there that led to this complete militarization, which was kind of necessary for America given the gun problem out there. You don't see it in France, right? You don't see it in Britain. So you don't need it in India, number one. As for police reforms, they're not happening in my lifetime.
Ridhiman Agarwal wants to know, Abhijit ji, what are your views on Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay's vision of Ekatma Manavvad, that is integral humanism?
Look, I just haven't read enough about it. I've just read like a 2-page summary and I don't know what to make of it so far.
Ishant Mida wants to know, why do you suggest Gripen and F-16 fighter? I think the best choice was the Rafale because India and France had long-standing defense ties, Scorpion submarines, etc. And we are already developing Gripen-like fighter jets, Tejas Mark II. And if we buy F-16, Biden can tell you anything.
Sure. Look, it's a cost-benefit analysis. The initial thing was for a single-engine fighter. You may think the Tejas is good enough. I don't. It's that simple. The Gripen and the F-16 are light years ahead in terms of their development cycles, right? So it's kind of like comparing the first generation of F-16 to the current generation of F-16s.
And Kaustubh, I think...
Different, even within generations of aircraft, you have huge differences. In fact, the 4th gen saw the biggest the non-visible, the internal, the electronic changes were maximum in the 4th generation of any other generation of aircraft, right? So Rafale is, and why did you need the Rafale if you had the Sukhoi? Tell me, what is it that the Rafale does that the Sukhoi doesn't do? Because technically, if you were to believe the stories, the Sukhoi was meant to be completely indigenized. It was meant to have everything was meant to be indigenized. You go back to the reporting of 1998. The promise was it was full transfer of technology, including the engines. Engine ka kya hua? Technology transfer ka kya hua? Then why do you need a plane that carries the same weight to allegedly half the distance?
So in these technology transfers, somewhere something kind of falls through the cracks, doesn't it? I mean, people are told that
somewhere something falls through the cracks. The initial assumption that we can absorb that technology itself is wrong. Because like I told you, technology is simply the tip of the iceberg. It depends on your education system. It depends on your college system. It depends on your the strength of your micro, medium and small industries. It depends on how advanced your fabrication processes are, things like that. See, why is it that Tata can't manufacture the Jaguar in India? Why does the Jaguar have to be manufactured there? And even though there has been a significant mutation of Jaguar technology into Tata's cars like, say, Harrier, Nexon or Safari, why are they still not at the same technological level as, say, a Range Rover Velar or a Jaguar XJ? right? It's the exact same thing. If you look at Tata's experience with the Jaguar and Land Rover versus Tata Motors, that is the same experience you're talking about here. There's a fundamental mismatch in the economic and educational base and industrial base of the exporting country and the importing country. So, we can, for example, to give this to you in the simplest possible terms, we can export mangoes to Iceland. We can teach them how to grow mangoes, but in the Iceland permafrost, you are not going to get mangoes, because you simply won't get mangoes unless you can produce temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius or more, where at least 30 degrees. I'm not a mango farmer, so I don't know. So this will be like, that famous story of Rajiv Gandhi asking him why apples weren't growing on a banana tree. But you get the drift.
Next question, Kaustubh Joshi had a question about what is your solution for the Indian Air Force depletion of fighter squadrons? Which fighter jet should India buy? I think you already answered the second part.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashutosh Sharma wants to know, how much do you think spirituality can contribute to overall education? I asked this because most of our generation wasn't told about these things, especially in teenage level when it's a must. Spirituality in education.
Interesting question. I've never really thought about it, but the question is, what do you define as spirituality? Because for me, a lot of the spirituality I see is complete mumbo jumbo. There's a book called Holy Cow about this Australian woman who comes to India to experience. Her husband is posted here and she goes around experiencing all the different religions. So she essentially becomes a spirituality tourist. Does that help you make a better person? I don't know. Technically, Osama bin Laden was a spiritual man. He was.
Shashank Sharma.
Who was the Alvar who ordered the killing of 8,000 Jains? Tirugyana Sambandar. He was a spiritual man. He's a saint. Tell me, do you think impaling 8,000 Jains on poles with staves shoved up your anus to come out of your mouth is a particularly spiritual venture? I don't know. You tell me.
Shashank Sharma wants to know, will Iraq and Syria ever be stable?
No, they're finished. As states, they're completely destroyed. They're like Afghanistan. Next 40, 50 years, nothing. They're going to be absolute hellholes.
Ashwini wants to know, why does India not have a blacklist for visitors? I think they do.
No, we don't. And it mostly has to do with ambassadors trading favors, because most of the people you should be putting on blacklists are in position to offer you jobs post-retirement. So I literally know people who have been given visas who have a whole list of verifiable instances of taking money from the Pakistanis. And not just being allowed in, platformed at government funded conferences.
How does India plan to counter the control China is planning on the river systems in the Indian subcontinent and in Indo-China region? What should India's response be?
They're actually not. And that was the whole point of the Galwan clashes, because we went in very, very specifically to stop the first time we have actually been able to detect a stoppage of water. We've been monitoring Chinese dams in Tibet for the last 3 years so far, and we have not been able to find a single stoppage of water project. As in, the flow before and the flow after remains the same. These are all hydroelectric run-of-the-mill projects. Galwan was the first one where we saw that the water had been stopped, and inexplicably we didn't even know where the water, because if water is stopped, it has to collect somewhere, right? We didn't even see the water collecting somewhere, which is what really worried us, and we're still working on that because we haven't been able to understand that.
Kami Sama had a question about Tata manufacturing that I think you've just answered. Kami, I think Abhijit already answered your question. Make29. Can you tell why Modi is miserably failing in handling past corruption cases that involve VIP middlemen?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Look, I don't get into the micro details of things like this. So, maybe Sree, you can get somebody from the XED or something like that to answer the question. Because all I've heard is conspiracy theories about how there are, well, I mean, they're not conspiracy theories. I know a few people who are Kattarpanthi Congress, even married into Congress families, that have been given extremely sensitive positions in this government. So,
Yeah, so it's just a mindset, I think, that Modi believes that the bureaucrats, given the right direction, will deliver it for him, regardless of what their allegiances are with which party. But there is a reality disconnect there. And I think he just delegates and goes off and thinks that it's going to get done. And you know as well as I do, in India, anytime there's a new law, the first few pages are what you cannot do. So the last 1-2 lines will be what you can do with the new law. So this is the British mindset that the bureaucracy has. A lot of things have to change. Lateral, entries into administrative services will help. But I can also tell you the IIS existing structure will eat those people alive because they know how to give you the answer that sounds right, but it's not. But these are all things that have to be tackled head on. We cannot go the way we are going now. For example, India needs to jump in with both feet into cryptocurrency, and cryptography is such a must have subject, and India is not doing anything about it. As far as I know, they've done nothing. I know I've talked to some of the technical leaders in the country. Now zip nada. I think you have to do it like the way Israel did. Israel said every 10 years they teach the entire strata a new technology, and one of them was cryptography, encryption, and all these things that took place in I think 1990s or so. Before that they had DSP. So these things, what happens is innovation starts coming out of it. We all talk about doing RSA. Can we expand RSA? All three are Israeli individuals, Rivesh, Shamir, and Adi. Anyway, so this kind of focus needs to be there. We have to do that thing at maybe Kendriya Vidyalaya. There are need all these things have to be done. You can't avoid it anymore. Next question for you, and today is a very busy day. I can tell you I'm not able to keep up because the questions keep coming. Just one second. Kamlesh Sahu wants to know what is Russia up to in Ukraine and what is NATO going to do about it?
Look, basically what is up with Russia is they kind of want to re-establish with Biden that if you try stunts with us like you've been trying, we're in a position to screw you over or screw any kind of alliances over. Because remember, if America or Britain commit to protect Ukraine, they have to fly over countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Moldavia, or put their ships through Turkey and things like that, through the Bosphorus, endangering them. Because they'll put the whole of NATO into jeopardy for a non-NATO country called Ukraine. So basically, this is Russia saber-rattling to show the Biden administration the limits of its powers, the limits of what it can do. And second, in order to there is a particular problem out there, which is that the Ukrainians have stopped the flow of fresh water through a canal to the Crimea. And you might think, well, the Crimea is surrounded on all sides by the sea. Yes, that's salt water. You still need fresh water that comes from a river. It's nowhere near a river. So, the river water, the fresh water has to come from Ukraine proper. And the Ukrainians have turned the tap off on that, which incidentally is an act of war. That is the whole reason the Galwan clashes happened. Remember that it was blocking off waters. Israel has also bombed waterworks in Syria in the 60s and 70s when the Syrians tried to block off waters. So it is an accepted principle of international law that the turning off of that the upper riparian country depriving the lower riparian country of its rights is just grounds for war.
Next question. What are your views on Sanjay Baru interview with Karan Thapar upon the change in bureaucrats? Comes back to our favorite topic.
Look, I don't see what I've seen the interview other than, Karan Thapar. I didn't think Sanjay Baru made any missteps out there. You're free to take it out of context, but what was the context in which Sanjay Baru said it? See, this is a administration that is shorn of the ability to talk to the outside world in the language that outside world understands.
Right.
It is it's a socio-economic strata that can't do it. And it's a socio-economic strata that doesn't feel the need to imbibe lessons from the outside or the correct lessons to take. He was also talking indirectly about the inferiority complex that plagues us. And the problem with an inferiority complex is it very frequently manifests itself as a superiority complex. It's like the yin and yang, they're both interlinked and born from the other kind of thing. So I don't see what was particularly funny about it. Or, the BJP has this wonderful talent of, the Rahul Gandhi's famous Alu Sona. He was actually making fun of Modi. But, they used that thing and brilliantly showed this fellow's a bloody idiot. So, go back, hear what I've said, go back and look at it and now examine what Sanjay Baru was saying. So you'll realize he wasn't saying anything bad.
Arvind Prakashan wants to know, is a nuclear Iran good or bad from the viewpoint of India?
Terrible. A nuclear Iran is never good for India because the last thing we need is one more bloody nuclear power with a significant number of Shia in India.
So what really happened in that nuclear site, Abhijit? Do you have any inputs?
The Israelis did it, man. They basically, created some kind of a power surge. As far as we understand, it was a cyber attack. It wasn't a physical attack, where all the electronic systems of it's the overground electricity generation plant for the underground enrichment facility. And what happened out here was they surged the power that created overloads and short circuiting of a lot of the centrifuges and things like that below. Significantly greater damage than the Iranians are admitting. And mind you, this is a program that was already crippled by Stuxnet, where they didn't realize and they were suffering from huge production losses. So there's been one more set of production losses. And the plant then surged so much electricity that it basically burnt itself down. So now you have to build a whole new plant. You have to connect it, bore again deep, and connect it down to the plant. And then you have to set up new centrifuges and God knows what else. We don't know what other ancillary equipment around the centrifuges got damaged. So all of that has to be done all over again. It's not, okay, so it's bad, but there's nothing that they can't fix in about 2 to 3 years' time. Officially, they're claiming that they can fix it in 9 months. It's 2 to 3 years. So it's not that bad in that sense. Killing scientists would be much more effective. Because see, when you destroy equipment, this is the best storage point. So you destroy equipment, it can be recreated from here. You destroy this, that can't be recreated. Which is why Germany and Japan were able to recreate, because the scientific core remained the same. The military died, but the scientific core was untouched. The entrepreneurial core, the entrepreneurial nature, remained untouched. So all they needed was an infusion of cash and they were able to rise again from the ashes like a phoenix. But had the scientists all been killed off, that would have been a completely different thing. For example, Look at Bihar after 1857. Bihar was the beating heart of Indian culture. But the kind of massacres of the intelligentsia and intellectuals that happened in Bihar, overnight Bihar went from being the quintessence of being Indian to be the most backward, lawless state of India. This is why I keep saying, learn. The BJP never learns this. From the 1066 Norman invasions of England to the 1192 Turkish invasions of India, in order to control, you must have a complete wipeout of the elites. Either wipe them out intellectually or financially. It no longer needs to be physically.
Arjun wants to know why can't India's security agencies coordinate better against the communist threat?
Boss, do you know where the intake of the officer corps for the security agencies is? Huh? Then go check out the syllabus of all those colleges. Do you know who's written all those syllabuses? Romila Thapar, Irfan Habib, people like that. You've got moles within the system, boss. Why are they going to take any of these people down? Plus, of course, there's the fact you don't have state capacity. Your internal surveillance is crap. Your internal intelligence is crap. What are you going to do?
Next question from Shashank Sharma. What are your views on the recently revised rights of overseas citizens of India cardholders, where they have regulated the OCI lifelong visa?
Sorry, repeat.
Okay, OCI. Okay, I'll tell what the reason. See, the OCI rights have been changed now. Overseas citizen of India, it was a card that was given for life. It was not a renewable thing. It was given for life, and that has been changed now. And what is happening is, one second. What is happening is some of the rights of the OCIs have been reduced. OCIs could buy property. They could buy many things. They couldn't buy agriculture land. That was the last thing that was left. OCI was essentially seen as a way for people to get dual citizenship in a due course of time. I think that has taken a step backward because of the farmers' agitation. I think that perhaps they felt that this is being misused by some people. That is India's response when they feel like somebody is misusing something. They just completely shut the door on it. I can't tell you more than that, except that now I think everybody has OCI renewal, which is like I think every 10 years or something like that. So I don't know what the benefit of an OCI card is. Next question, Abhijit, if you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Colson wants to know, Washington is allowing the sale of F-16s to Pakistan. Was this expected from Biden?
Yes. I've been telling you from day one, the fellow's compromised.
Vaibhav C. Can India and other countries carry out freedom of navigation exercises in United States Economic EEZ? And would that be a good move for us? Go on patrol like Diego Garcia Island.
What are you going to do it with, boss? Do you have the refueling abilities to get there?
That's only
just
one of the many.
Wikipedia. Go through Wikipedia. Tell me one ship in the Indian fleet right now that has the ability to go there. If you can, you can. Of course, they're not signatories to the UNCLOS. I don't think they have extended economic zones the way we do anyway.
And we explained that in a previous hangout. Abhijit explained why India created those EEZs. So please do watch that video for more. Overlord wants to know, is there hope for India to improve on its economical barriers by Modi embracing capitalism?
I will turn vegetarian before Modi embraces capitalism.
So why is Russia investing $8 billion in Pakistan? Sarthak Suman wants to know.
They're not investing, Baba. Listen, you need to make a difference between announcements and reality. Okay. Talk to me after they start investing. They're going to invest jack shit because I've spoken to the Kremlin about this several times. They see Pakistan as toxic. First of all, they don't have the money to invest. Okay. Second, they are never going to invest it in there because even the most ardent Pakistan supporter in the Kremlin will know that they will lose any kind of currency that they have in advising Russia to invest in Pakistan.
Have you heard of something called Terra Power? Terra Power. This is a
No.
Bill Gates initiative, which is supposedly a new nuclear way of generating power, which Bill Gates claims is very, very safe. Nandula, we don't know the answer to that question, whether it is better or
Which
not.
kind of power is it? Because there's several
Nuclear,
technologies.
nuclear, nuclear.
I
Let me
know,
ask you.
but what is the specific technology? Is it an
He doesn't
accelerated?
say. He just.
Is it?
Yeah. So, Nandula, if you could rephrase your question on what type of nuclear technology is it? Fusion, fission? You haven't put that in your
No. It's
question.
not
So,
just fusion fission. Be specific on what type of generation is it. Is it a
it's a,
fast breeder reactor? Is it a pressurized heavy water reactor? Is it an accelerator driven cycle? Is it a thorium cycle? What is it?
no, he hasn't mentioned that. So he has
So
to
I
mention
don't
that.
know. Na?
Yeah. Yeah, right. We're down to the last two questions. Yeah, we are not taking any more questions, guys. We're coming to the end of the program. Anandan Ramanathan, he wants to know what are the 5 top things that you would like Modi to do immediately? Your top 5.
1, police reforms. 2, judicial reforms. 3, full unrestricted privatization of the entire PSU. And if you don't want to, if you think it's prone to crony capitalism, then split up all the assets and do that. Complete proper demonetization into electronic currency and land reforms. Get rid of the classification of land and computerize the entire thing into a central database.
And the last question for today's hangout, Siddharth Ravikumar wants to know your thoughts on the recent Nixon seminar by Peter Thiel and Mike Pompeo. Do their views hold any sway with the current US administration?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think I can tell you from experience that the previous secretaries are often consulted because there's a continuity. Not everything is going to be reversed 180 degrees. People will have a lot of continuity, so they do keep them in the loop in a general sense of word.
Not Pompeo, because he's seen as an enemy for supporting Trump when even Mike Pence turned on him. So Pompeo is being cut out of everything.
Right now, there are people who tried to shake Trump off of the Republican pedestal, and that has not worked. You know that, right? And he's now come back. He's waited his time. He's coming back, and he's coming back really hard now at those who opposed him. Liz Cheney is number 1.
Liz Cheney is target number 1. She's coming down. She's not winning re-election.
Right.
I think he wants to make an example of her and show that he doesn't care if the Republicans continue in a minority in the Senate, as long as his enemies are taken down. So they understand what the price is, and that is, according to me, is the correct move. Because there were so many traitors within his camp. Who thought Mike Pence would turn out to be a traitor?
All right. So there is a clarification on that fast nuclear thing. Bill Gates is investing in a company called Terra Power, Terra Power.
Look, that's not the question.
It's a nuclear fast reactor. It says it's using nuclear fast reactor called the traveling wave reactor.
Okay, that's news to me. I haven't. Let me read up on it.
Sure.
The traveling wave is not something I've read about. I think the most feasible of all these technologies was the accelerator driven cycle. Let's see.
Great. Excellent. And with that, we bring our program to a close. Viewers, we apologize for the few minutes delay that we had at the very beginning. Abhijit was stuck in traffic. Traffic is something that we don't have any control on. But Abhijit, thank you so much. I know how much of a rush you had to go through to make it to this program. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you on our channel. Those of you who have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Also, please consider donating. We got a lot of donations today. Thank you so much. And as always, Abhijit, Nandri Vanakkam.
Veil, veil, vetrivel. Thank you.